This is one of the most powerful empowerment tools on the planet today, and very few people know about it. And it is everyone's birthright to have access to your own Akashic record.
Hi, I'm Swara, and welcome to the Akashic Records Unlocked Summit, where you can heal your past, realize who you're meant to be, and live an extraordinary life. I'm so excited to have a very special guest today, LISA BARNETT. LISA is the internationally recognized Akashic Records consultant, teacher, and author, and founder of the Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom. Welcome, LISA, to the summit. We're so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Swara. It's always a joy to spend time with you. So thanks for having me on.
Wonderful. So we're here talking about the Akashic Records. And of course, the first question is, what are the Akashic Records? Can you tell us about them?
Yes, of course. So the Akashic Records is the recording of your soul's journey through all time-space continuum. And I always like to say, if you could imagine that from that moment that you individuated from source and went on a journey for kind of an infinite amount of time, everything you've been or done in any dimension and any realm. So sometimes we've been in the angelic realm, the fairy realm, we've been mermaids, mer people, we've lived in, planets all over the galaxies. And then, of course, we come here to Earth, but all of that is actually recorded in your own personal Akashic library.
Wow, that's amazing. That sounds like it is a vast resource of information. And I didn't realize that it also included not only these lifetimes here and incarnations, but all the places and dimensions in between. That's wonderful. It's amazing. So it sounds like it's so big and so vast. How do we use the Akashic Records? Why are they here? What's that purpose?
Well, what the Akashic Record Keepers have said to me, and I'll take one step back, which is that if you can imagine you have this vast library of you have your own librarians also. And that's who we call the Akashic Record Keepers. I sometimes just call them the beings of light or the Akashic Masters. We have a whole team, not just one. And it's important to know that the Akashic Record Keepers have never been human. They have no judgment. They are pure source, light, and love. And they're really here to support us. They've devoted their life at this point to supporting us. And so we have a whole team of record keepers, of our own personal librarians, to help us sift through all this information, to use it and to access it in a way that's helpful and supportive for us personally.
Wow, that actually helps a lot, because just feeling the vastness of how big this resource can be, it's really good to know that we also have a team of beings helping us in that realm, so it doesn't become overwhelming. And then you said that the purpose really is to help us. In what ways? Like what can they help us with?
Oh, I have to say, kind of almost anything in a way, right? So what happens is, before you decide to come back to Earth, you write a soul plan. And that plan is recorded in the Akashic Records. And so the way the plan works is, we think, I want to go back to Earth and I want to have a family and maybe a significant partner and some friends and maybe children. And we create soul contracts with these other souls before we embody. And many of these people are from our original soul family. And many of them are souls that we've known in other lifetimes. And so we make this plan. So just imagine that before you come back to Earth, you're in a huge auditorium with all these other souls who are coming back to Earth, to your kind of area of the planet, say. And we're like, hey, I need a couple of significant partners, right? We never know how time is exactly going to fall together. And of course, we have free will. So you never know what we're going to do with that. So we like to hedge our bets by having a half a dozen or a dozen, say, significant partners who we might end up marrying or being with for a lifetime. And so say you have a dozen people volunteer and they've said, hey, remember we had that great past life where we were married and we had so much fun. And somebody else says, you know, we had a karmic pattern in a life and maybe we want to do some work around that and finish that old karmic pattern. So, you know, you and I could get together and it might not last, but we're going to learn and grow as a soul. And so we make these very complex plans with many souls. That was just, you know, about, say, a significant partner. Then you plan children or not. You, of course, plan some version of parents, right? We all come through that way, whether we stay with them or not. But all of that is part of this intricate soul plan that you write. And that's really just about the contracts. So imagine that you have lots you want to learn and you say, I'm going to create these challenges so I can learn and grow as a soul. I'm going to have some lovely, easy, supportive times, possibly. You might write some of that in where you find work that you love doing, and that's easy, at least for a while. We have gifts and talents we plan to bring each time to Earth, to our lives. And those are usually gifts and talents we've honed in other lifetimes. So if you imagine that you're using all of these multiple lifetimes that you've had here on Earth, and sometimes from other dimensions or planes, sometimes we want to invent something that's going to be really useful for humanity now. And that may actually even come from another dimension or realm, another past life we've had on some other planet or place. And so we plan all of this out. Then, of course, we come here to Earth and we all have amnesia.
I wish we didn't have that.
It would be too easy if you could remember, right? That would take all the fun out of the game.
Right.
You know, so it's a huge kind of game we're playing as these big divine souls. Like, I'm going to go and see if I can get this done this time. Yeah. So sometimes we write really challenging lifetimes, and sometimes, you know, sometimes they're a little bit easier, really depending on what kind of is up for you in your string of 300, 400, 600, 800 lifetimes that you've lived.
Wow. Wow. And having the Akashic Records there as a resource, what is the purpose of that?
Well, if you imagine, of course, you've got amnesia, and so many of my clients and my students come to me and they're like, I don't know if I'm on purpose. What's my soul's purpose, right? It's a big question that people ask. The interesting answer that the record keepers often give us is that you don't have one purpose. Your purpose is actually to complete as much of your soul's plan as you can. So that means to work through the challenging soul contracts you have with other people that may have karmic patterns attached, that you support the people that you said you would support and allow them to support you. You can remember and access and bring back some of the gifts and talents that you've wanted to share with humanity. And of course, the big point is about learning and growing as a soul. We're really not in it just for the fun. Of course, there's some of that in there, but literally to say, wow, I finally was able to move past my old jealousy, and I could forgive someone who, you know, did me wrong, whatever that relationship was. Oh, my partner had an affair, and I could actually forgive them. I could feel compassion for them and the situation they were in. I could see the bigger picture and understand that in other lifetimes, maybe I was the cheating one. And so the Akashic Records are here to help us to see this big picture, which is we're infinite souls.
Yeah.
And to be able to learn with some of that kind of bigger view and wisdom to say, you know, instead of just getting mad and stomping off, let me see if I can learn something. Maybe I can see where they were coming from. Maybe I can understand what's going on here. And that's the growth. And that's really why we come. So we weirdly come for the challenges.
Wow, that's amazing. It seems like such a great resource that if I am in this path of learning, growing, and experiencing, if I do get stuck, I could have that resource to help me and give me that higher perspective and maybe shift things and create shifts and new understandings along that path. So that's wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So I've, say worked with, who knows, probably hundreds of clients who have come to me maybe on the verge of divorce or feeling brokenhearted, upset because of some situation in their significant partnership where they feel that they're not loved fully or not seen fully, or possibly the partner has had something like an affair, or maybe they have some addiction issues, and they come to me and they say, do I still have a soul contract with this person?
Yeah.
Is there something for me to learn? Have I learned it? Is it okay? Right? I think we worry a lot of times about creating more karma. It's like, is it okay if we separate at this point, or is there something for me to learn? And that really shifts the view of a lot of, the way we look at relationship, because of course, so often we're just taking it personally. And if we can see a bigger, picture, if we can look at our partner and their life and their challenges and possibly what brought you two together, it can be very transformational when you realize that you're actually part of the same soul family, that you've traveled through the galaxies together forever, that you've been married before, you've been, parent, child sometimes. When you can start to understand how complicated we are as ancient and wise souls, it really changes our perspective on an issue, on a challenge.
Yeah, wonderful. That's wonderful. So how do you access the Akashic Records?
So many years ago, the Akashic Record Keepers asked me to start a school, and they said, we will give you many access prayers, because they said, you're very galactic. Many of the access prayers that had been in the world up until that point were Pleiadian. They were really connected more to the energy of the Pleiades. And I, on the other hand, I would say I was more Sirian, Arcturian, just galactic. I've been around the block a couple times. So they said, we'll give you lots of access prayers. So they have given me what we now call a 5-step wisdom prayer system to really simply kind of logically open our own Akashic records and move really quickly and easily into that vibration of source energy. Our Akashic records are stored in source and also in the quantum field. And they also said to me, you are a healer at heart, and we want you to teach people to heal through the Akashic records, because it's very profound work to do.
Beautiful. So you use this prayer to access the Akashic records. And then when people work with you and have those healings that you're talking about, what can somebody expect to experience? What does that look like?
Yeah, so of course, depending on, what questions people show up with, but often I find that people will come, one, because they're interested in some of their purposes, some of their gifts and talents, but often people come for an Akashic reading because they feel blocked or stuck. It might be in a relationship, it could be around money, it could be around health. And when we open their Akashic records and ask the record keepers, what is going on around their money block, often the record keepers will give me 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of levels and layers of information. And many of them include really going in and being able to heal and clear. So money is always a good example because, well, so many of us have financial challenges in this world, right? But what we can see is that many of us on a spiritual path have been spiritual in a lot of different lifetimes. And we've taken vows of poverty when we've been nuns or monks or priests. We've taken, of course, along with that, vows of chastity and obedience, which also don't serve us anymore. So we can go in and clear old vows. We can do some clearing work around collective contracts. So we have group contracts with all those other people in the monastery. And many times we would contract with them in some way to stay small, stay hidden, not do our healing work alone because we're a group. And so there's a lot of aspects in there that can hold us back from going out and creating really the life that our heart desires. Say, I want to go and be a healer, but I don't feel like I really can because I have some group contracts around not working alone and not using my gifts for money. So many of those are connected to old lifetimes, past lifetimes. So we can clear a lot of those sorts of things. Of course, money has to do with our ancestral lineage. We can go all the way back on our ancestral lineage, clear blocks around money back in the ancestral lineage. I often will find, kind of surprisingly, I think, to many people, but we have a lot of curses, or most people have sometimes 1 or 2 curses back through our ancestral lineage. Not that many of them are present day, but a lot of different, we can get cursed really through anger, jealousy, hatred. And so it doesn't have to be kind of a big voodoo hex or black magic. And some of them are, and some of those are still kind of stuck and holding us back. So, we just go through and start to unravel, clear, release, delete some of these old patterns, vows, contracts, group contracts, and it just frees people up. And they're like, wow, I feel like I can now charge for my work, or actually charge a little bit more for my work. I feel like I'm not afraid to be seen anymore. And so as we unravel a lot of these old past challenges, whether it's a past life or it's a childhood pattern, of course, many people have layers of this from their childhood. They just get freed up to make a new choice, maybe take a new job, maybe a new job appears. Somebody gives them a call and says, hey, I'd love to have you come work for me. We met at, some mastermind or something. Yeah. And so doors open where there weren't any earlier, because we freed our energy field up to be more expansive for ourselves, for us to be seen, and we become more accessible to the outside world that way.
I love that. That's wonderful. And I love that it is really about going into past lives and on the soul level that you're looking at this, because we can handle probably whatever's happened in this lifetime because we know it, we've seen it, we can think about it, we can, talk about it, journal, we have a lot of tools to handle that in this lifetime. But if it comes from a past life, or if it's information, like you said, curses or things that come from someplace else, it's just ethereal. How do we put our hands on that, right? How do we wrap our minds around that? So that is powerful to have a resource like the Akashic Records to help unlock that for us. That's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because people they have no idea that they're there, right? It's like, I don't know what's stopping me, what is blocking me. I've struggled with this for a long time. And so often those kind of patterns also can be connected to karmic patterns, our belief that we are not worthy, all sorts of, different connections. So it goes from past lives, sometimes into the family we pick, our birth family. And so it can also be connected into that ancestral lineage, and then the childhood layers that get dumped on top of all of that. And we're peeling childhood layers off, but then we're like, nothing's happening. What's wrong? It's like, well, if we clear that curse, if we can unravel that programming, there's a lot of programming around things like money and, being good actually is one of those interesting things that can block us and hold us back. We feel like, I have to be a good girl. I can't get out there. I can't ask for what I want. I'm not able to be more outgoing because I was programmed to be this quiet little child who was seen and not heard.
Yeah.
And most people are not even aware that they have energetic programs in their field. So all of this is something that we can work with through the Akash.
Wonderful. And so when you are working and, with those guides that are in the Akashic Records, how do you receive the information? How do you experience that?
So for me, information comes in usually in three ways. I see an image, I kind of hear some words, and claircognizance, which is really a clear knowingness. I get that. I just know the story. So it comes in different, again, levels and layers of information. Yeah. Sometimes it'll show up as an image and I'll be like, oh, I can see that right away. There's one of those past lives where you took that vow of poverty. Yeah. And so as I start to clear that vow of poverty, another layer, I might get words where I'll hear clairaudiently, or I just know a bigger story that is connected to that. And so we continue the healing in multiple levels.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I love that. And that it's coming in so many different ways. It seems like it really comes in dimensionally to you. So if somebody here in the audience has practiced going into their Akashic Records, but might have a question, how do you tell the difference between maybe hearing your own higher voice or hearing that and knowing that it's the Akashic Records that you're actually in communication with?
Great question. So what I would say is that if you have taken a workshop with someone like me or one of the other teachers, and you have an access prayer, something that's pretty concrete, I find it's almost easier because it's something you can do and notice what you notice, right? So for me, when I read the access prayer, I can kind of feel the energy shift. I move out of any kind of human stuff that might have been bothering me or stress, and I move really into kind of feeling kind of like a different person. It's funny, but it's like I just feel happier and more expansive, more just open. And so we can start to notice that's just what I'm noticing before I'm even asking any questions. So to notice what it feels like when you're not in the records and when you're in the records is a great place to start. And I always suggest with my my students to do that, to open their records and kind of notice what you notice, and then take a few minutes and either do a little guided visualization or I give my students healing prayers. I've written a book that has 73 healing prayers to help transform your life. And I suggest do 5 or 10 of the healing prayers while you actually let the energy deepen. Because the Akashic energy deepens over the first 15 or 20 minutes of being in the records. I have some aura photos that we took outside of the records, kind of what you look energetically, your aura looks before you open the records, and then after we've been in the records for a few minutes, and then after we've been in the records for like 20 or 30 minutes. And you can see the energy actually getting denser and denser as we're in that vibration. So if you're starting to practice, give yourself time by being in the records for 10 or 15 minutes before you start asking like your big burning questions, right? Make sure energetically you've let that vibration build up around you, in you, with you. And then, you know, to me, I love to teach really to start with simple questions, things that are not going to change your life. Yeah, I always tell my students, you know, work in the records for whatever it is, 30 days, a month or two, before you ask if your soul contract with your spouse is done, if you should get divorced and move to another country, right? Like, don't start with the big questions, because ego can jump in, especially in the beginning, until we're clear and solid in and out, what that feels like to us. And then we start to notice, how do we receive information? Do I hear? Am I clairaudient? So the interesting thing about clairaudience is that for most of us, it sounds like us in our head, right? So it's not a big booming voice out here. It's kind of in my head. But one of the kind of telltale signs is that it feels or sounds a little different. Like, to me, it would say, the cadence or the languaging or the verbiage that the record keepers use tends to be a little different than the way I speak. Right? They will often say things to us like, dear one, right? I don't talk to myself with dear one, let me say, right? And so you're like, oh, well, that caught my attention. And they're often, of course, especially in the beginning, they're here to support us. So kind and loving and gentle. They're going to be supportive and not harsh. They're not going to tell us that we've done something wrong or bad. So if you're getting any, that was not a good idea, that was bad, that was, you know, anything judgmental, then you know that's really your ego, not your record keepers. So you know, those are a couple of little tips to notice. But many of us also are clairsentient or claircognizant. We really kind of just feel and know more. And I find that writing what we receive, the information that we receive, whether it's a story or there are specific words, whatever that is, by writing it down and having a chance to go back and read it later, it can be a very clear difference when the record keepers are speaking to us, even claircognizantly. When that story or that information comes through, we often say, wow, I would never have thought of that. I didn't know anything about that. That doesn't sound like me, right? And so the practice is what allows us to really build and kind of build our faith and trust that we really are having a conversation with our own record keepers.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. That was just chock full of so much good advice, good information, ways of discerning and connecting, some good practices, writing what you get. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm sure our audience is going to love that portion of this interview. Can you tell us also, I heard that you were recently on a TED Talk. I'd love to know about your experience with that, you know, what you, the fact that the Akashic Records are being discussed in a TED Talk to me means we have definitely shifted into a new time. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. So the record keepers told me last year, probably almost a whole year ago, like January of 2021. And they had said, it's time to finish your third book and to do a TED Talk. Wow. Right. I'm like, I do whatever they tell me to do, let me just say. So I hesitate occasionally. Sometimes I might argue a little bit, but in the end, I know they support whatever they ask me to do. So I had joined a TEDx coaching program, and I was working with this team that was very lovely. And I had done about 30 applications for different TEDx stages. And of course, it was even more complicated because with COVID, there weren't many stages. People were doing video interviews and different things like that. And I really wanted to do a stage. And so, I was kind of going along, and I had done the 30 applications. And then I was like, I got kind of, wait, like, it's okay, kind of work on the book and do the other work. And I'm teaching workshops, and I'm doing my healing sessions with clients and traveling. I had to go to Croatia and Bosnia. I had to go to the Bosnian pyramids. My husband and I went, and, just having actually some fun traveling during COVID, because it was very empty and really phenomenal to actually get to travel. Anyway, my aside, sorry. Anyway, I came back from all of that. I met a new friend at a mastermind, and she did a TEDx. She had just done a TEDx, and she said, I have the greatest coach to help you write your TEDx. Mm-hmm. And he is looking for speakers for a stage in Vancouver, Canada.
Wow.
So let me introduce you. And she did. And they took me on as a speaker on the stage in Canada. And we really decided we had to really think about it, because TEDx has very specific guidelines, and you're not supposed to do fake science or faux science, or, kind of like, I really couldn't go and talk about like the Akashic Records in the quantum field, because I'm not a scientist. Yeah. And so I really had to come from my personal experience. Yeah. And so what my TED Talk is about healing trauma using the Akashic Records.
Wow.
So and it was so perfect because, when I realized trauma is everybody, especially now after the last 2 years, we all have new trauma. Mm-hmm. Most of us have had some form of trauma in our lives. And trauma is one of those things. The emotional pain and really unconscious trauma is what creates probably a great many of our blocks, that energy where I feel stuck and I'm blocked and I don't know why I can't move forward, and why can't I find a new job, or where's that love of my life, or why can't I make a happy life for myself. And often in the records, we can go in and see these emotional pain that has been buried through our lifetime, sometimes literally starting from a past life and coming into this lifetime. And so part of the healing I've been doing through the Akashic Records for all these, 25, almost 30 years, I really was a healer before I really started to work in the Akashic Records. That's how I connected up to the records, was through the healing work I did. And what I've realized is that it really is that emotional pain and trauma that is creating so many of our blocks. And so that's what the TEDx talk is about. And I say that, I just say, I found that the Akashic Records, so I actually say it on the stage.
That's amazing.
And so I just was like, the Akashic Records, the record keepers, when you start accessing your records, it's phenomenal. They said to me many years ago when they asked me to start a school, and I said, like, why, And they said, because this is one of the most powerful empowerment tools on the planet today, and very few people know about it. And it is everyone's birthright to have access to your own Akashic record. And so that is, that's been my purpose for many, many years, is to bring the Akashic wisdom back to humanity and to teach people to access their own Akashic records so that you can be really guided by your soul every single day.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's amazing. So impactful what you're saying. I'm so excited for this TEDx talk. I can't wait to see it. I hope that the link and information will be available by the time this releases. And if it is, we'll definitely have a link on your speaker page to your TEDx talk. The world really is changing and shifting into understanding what the Akashic records are. If this is happening on TEDx, definitely things are shifting. And the fact that you're also talking about trauma, that is really, a big topic that's on people's minds right now. There's a lot of awareness about it. And the fact that the Akashic records can be a resource to bring some lightness to that is a really important message to get out there right now. So thank you, Lisa. Lisa is also my own teacher and taught me everything I know about the Akashic records. I'm so personally grateful to you and the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited because from the 20 years ago, it has, snowballed. So I am thrilled to grow the school, to have, thousands of students around the world, including you. Thank you. And thank you for really highlighting this work out in the world with your summit.
Yeah, thank you. So it looks like we're coming up to the end of our time, but before we go, I want to make sure and let people know, I believe that you brought a free gift with you. Can you let us know about that?
Yes. So one of my favorite kind of guided visualizations, the record keepers have given me, a dozen plus guided visualizations as helpful, simple tools to help humanity. And what I would love to offer you is a simple visualization to deepen your intuition. And I call it the 3 brains because we actually have 3 brains. You have, of course, your head brain, but you have your heart brain and your gut brain. And when we connect them all together, it deepens all the information. It deepens, obviously, not only our mental level, but past that, we have our third eye, our clairaudience. We connect that up with our claircognizance, our heart brain, and our gut brain, which is also very much about our clairsentience and all of this wisdom that we receive through our body as empaths. And so it's a fun, simple guided visualization to connect your 3 brains and deepen your intuition.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a generous gift. It sounds like it'll be a great tool to be able to have more connection with the Akashic records. Wonderful. Thanks. And so thank you so much also, Lisa, for being here today, for sharing just your words of wisdom, your experience with our audience. I'm so very grateful.
Oh, thank you, Swara. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful. And to all of our audience out there, I hope that you found this talk to be inspiring and filled with lots of great information. We'll be unboxing more about the Akashic Records every day, so please join us again tomorrow. Thank you. See you there. Bye.